Meeting.
Okay, the date is June 11th, 2012. Time is 6:38 p.m. Gary Ciccarone,
Here.
Rick Charette,
Present.
Steve Machowski,
Here.
Ed Nason,
Present.
Jim Freeman,
Here.
Rob Collins,
Here.
Clifton Camp, Ed Comeau.
Here.
Okay, we're missing the selectmen's rep. We don't have an alternate for him.
No. Well, no, I don't think anybody can be the selectman's rep alternate unless they're a selectman.
That's right. Well, they can, but they gotta be appointed by the selectmen.
I see, yes. Well, you resigned to being head tonight.
Okay.
You can't be Cliff. Okay, let's start with the mail. We just received from the Stratford Regional Planning Commission. It's addressed to the Brookfield Board of Selectmen, but I guess it's part of our purview, I don't know. And it's for the Stratford Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is SMPO, and it's responsible for transportation planning for the region. It's comprised of the Policy Committee and the Technical Advisory Committee, TAC. Each of the 18 committees is a member of the MPO through their association with SRPC. It's comprised of municipal staff representatives, etc. This letter represents our solicitation for SMPO Technical Advisory Committee appointees. They will be appointed for 2 years, in this case 2013 and 14, and it meets on the first Friday every month to give and receive input on regional transportation issues as a critical component in the decision-making process for the MPO. Please list your representatives to the SMPO TAC committee so that we may update our mailing list for 2013, which starts July 1st this year. Please return the appointment form to SRPC via fax or mail. If you would like to appoint an alternate, you may do so. Both appointed representatives and the appointed alternate will receive TAC mailings. You can keep the same appointments as fiscal years 2010 or 12, or you can appoint new members. And then it says these were the following people were appointed, and underneath it says 2010 to 2012 appointee vacant, and so for the alternate. So we don't have anybody that belongs to this.
We don't, but I do attend most of those NPO meetings, TAC meetings, because I had asked to, because I was interested in the region, transportation-wise. So I would be certainly willing to go there. I'm already...
Well, I was about to ask you that. If you
Chairman,
would.
I move that we appoint Ed Comeau to the SMPO Technical Advisory Committee for 2010 through 2000.
No, through 2012, 13.
12 to 13.
Yeah.
1 second.
Any other discussion?
How many, there's 2 positions, correct?
No. Yes, there are 2 positions. There's the appointee and the alternate. We could have an alternate. Does anybody want to? Well, we're working on the appointee at the moment. Then we'll go and see if anybody wants to be an alternate after that. I think we should do them together. Any other discussion? All in favor of Ed taking that position?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Ed, you're now our representative to,
We expect you to
SMPO.
stir up the thing.
Yeah.
You know, keep it on its toes.
I'm sure you'll have a good time with it.
I'd be willing to sit as alternate, Ted, in case you need somebody to fill in for him.
Okay, well, there we are.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that Jim Freeman be the alternate to the SMPO Technical Advisory Committee for the next 2 years.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Abstentions? Then You guys can both go at the same time too, no doubt.
I don't know, that's not to get caught up in.
It's very interesting.
Well, it should be interesting because then we'll get firsthand information of what's going on down there. Not that anything strange is going on, but it might be. Okay, that is that. I'm gonna put this back in the envelope, so.
Ed, have you been videotaping those meetings or just attending?
I was just attending the FEO TAC meetings, not videotaping, but I will begin to videotape those,
If you're gonna be an appointee.
absolutely.
I bet you scare people.
No, at first, they were uncomfortable, but then, they realized it was a good asset, because they also go back. I get at least 100 hits out of this Stratford Regional Planning Commission, because some of the members can't make it. And then you can go back, and people have used it, so.
Personally, I admire your dedication and motivation. I think it's pretty amazing, but anyway. That's pretty much announcements and correspondence, unless there's something hidden down deep, George, is there?
There was an email.
All right, let me find it. I'm sorry I didn't get to review this earlier, but I've been swamped. Email. I don't see it. Where is the email here?
Yeah, that's part of it. Oh, wait a minute, did you do this?
No,
No.
that's the Igloo business.
Yeah, there was,
Those are my originals that I gave you to reproduce.
that was all.
I don't see it. Not here.
Wait a minute, that's it. So,
It's okay. Okay. Selectmen, representative, concerned citizens. This is the Rochester City Council meeting from 6/5/12. The council has asked for public input on Rochester, New Hampshire joining the Granite State Future Agreement, also known as the Sustainable Communities Initiative, SCI. It is a federal partnership program between HUD, the DOT, and the EPA. The program, which stems from President Obama's Executive Order 13575, establishing the Rural Council. The federal grant project can enable any one of these agencies, HUD, DOT, EPA, to mandate changes to a town's local land use planning and zoning ordinances. Some of the terms of the SCI agreement appear to be eerily similar to what has happened in Westchester County, New York, which was unjustly sued and subsequently pressured into a $51,000. Well, there's an M after that. That's million. Roman numeral means 1,000, so I wasn't sure.
you're right.
Okay, $51.6 million settlement. Opponents are concerned that the city, towns do not understand the consequences when signing on to this legally binding agreement. The 9 regional planning commissions within New Hampshire are approaching towns to join. The grant program is using the Fair Housing Act and civil rights legislation to incorporate social equity and environmental justice into town, city planning and zoning. The attachment will give background. Wow, I think this is a matter that we ought to really discuss a little bit at some point. I don't know. Get some.
Yeah, the board should certainly take this home and digest this
Yeah.
information, because in the email, it's linkable to outside information from HUD. So if you use your email and click on the underlined, highlighted areas, it goes to the actual HUD documents, HUD websites, EPA sites, etc., and explains the whole process. There's also stories of not only Westchester, New York, but I believe there's a few towns in New Hampshire that have been sued who have also signed on to it.
Well, it would seem, now this is an email.
Yes, sir. It was from Ed, yes, sir.
Okay.
From me.
Did you send this out already then?
Yes, I did.
So we all have copies of this. I saw it, but I haven't had time to review it. I've been swamped. So we all should look at that. This is pretty important stuff, actually. Whether we act on it or don't.
You're going to. You're going to have to, because the RPCs are going to approach the town to give a presentation on this very agreement. So I just thought it would be better for you to
Head start.
Heads up, yeah.
read about it, understand it, so when they come to give you the presentation, you'll have very educated questions for them.
Okay, when is this, do you have any idea what the time schedule for this is?
It'll be within months.
Really, and how do they expect to do this? At selectmen's meetings or planning board meetings, or do you have any idea?
Rochester was done through planning,
Okay,
so it'll either probably do it through planning or through the selectmen's meeting.
But Rochester was at the city council, right?
That was a special meeting held because citizens were alarmed enough where they asked the mayor to hold off on the vote to adopt it. It passed, and it passed 7-6 to delay the agreement to be signed until August after they do a thorough investigation on it.
But it will be the Rochester City Council that is making the agreement, not the planning board, right?
It has to be the town, the selectmen or the city councils.
So we as a planning board could make a recommendation, we'll hopefully have a hand in making recommendations to the selectmen,
Absolutely.
one way or the other.
well,
Then would it go to a town vote, or would the selectmen decide?
it doesn't cost us anything to make a recommendation, no matter how you shake a stick at it. What's the usual? I don't see it going to a town meeting.
Well, to answer the question, it is not a town meeting. The selectmen alone
Can do that.
can do it, yes. And they have.
In various places.
Because they're the ones that sign contracts for the town.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's what this is, if I understand correctly, it's a contract.
It's a legally binding agreement between the town, HUD, EPA, and DOT.
And the selectmen
It would
will
seem to
do a
me
executive decision.
that we could, when we get heads up to this, I'm not sure about this, but I believe we could schedule a public hearing on this issue,
Just like Rochester did.
which would get people in here to hear our views or whatever prior to this selectmen vote.
We may want to contact the selectmen directly and ask all of them to be present at that hearing. So-
Of course, yeah. Yeah. How would anybody else feel about that?
I think that a public hearing would be a great thing. I think maybe, or a workshop or some public venue. Hopefully we'd be able to get somebody from SRPC to make the case for it. I watched the videotape of the Rochester meeting. I don't think there'll be any problem getting a large number of people who have opinions against it. And I think that would be really good for the town, right? I mean, if we can get people to actually show up and listen, I think they'd learn a lot, and we could make an informed decision as a town.
What's the carrot to sign up for this? Are they paying for signatures?
Federal grant money. You said what was the carrot? Is that what you said?
Yeah, the grant says it, the grant money. What's usual timeline between scheduling their presentation and the actual presentation? How much time do they usually?
With Rochester, it was about a month, but I'm not sure of the time frame.
So that does barely give us enough time to have a public hearing, which means that would probably happen just before the presentation, which would be good. It's fresh in people's mind.
The RPCs are working very diligently around the state. I don't believe there's a specific timeline. Sooner the better, according to them, but 2 months, I'm sure there'll be plenty of time to have a public hearing.
I think we should do that before we have their presentation.
Well, we know they're coming. We can schedule a public hearing without waiting for them to schedule their presentation.
I agree, but I think the closer it is to the event,
Yep.
because you know how it is, we're all the same, out of sight, out of mind. If you know it's going to be next Tuesday,
It's fresh in your mind if it's.
yeah, it makes the blood flow a little bit faster.
I'm not sure it makes sense for us to have a public hearing without somebody from SRPC making a presentation of what it is that they're proposing.
Throw them for a
I
loop,
agree.
call them up and tell them you want to schedule it.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that, I mean,
Get in here.
they
We
will
want
probably
our
separately do a
presentation. Tell
presentation
me
to the
when.
selectmen, right? I think we should make sure that, and I think we could probably do that anytime. I mean, there's enough noise about it that I'm sure we could say, hey, we're having this public, hearing.
Would you get a better turnout on a Saturday instead of a Tuesday night?
More than likely.
I mean, if we were, if we really wanted to, we could do both, but, I mean, that's,
I think we should schedule them and get them in there, and once they present it to the planning board, this is the planning board should see this presentation first, and then schedule a public hearing, once we're informed through the email and the links, and see the presentation. We should have time to deliberate and see what we, as a planning board that protects this town, thinks about this. Is it good for the town, is it bad for the town? We've got to get our story straight, and we've got to know how we all feel about it before we schedule public hearings.
I hear what you're saying, but I think if SRPC will give us the preliminary, I guess what I'm getting at is that anybody that's interested in coming to that has no foreknowledge of what it's going to consist of. It's a hard thing to think on your feet during the process. If they get the thing preliminarily and they find out what it's all about, it fuels their intellect so that when they're... I don't know how much time the selectmen have to decide this. I imagine they can decide at any time after the presentation. But I don't know, does everybody think we should wait till after the presentation to have a public hearing or do it before?
I like Ed's idea of preempting their timeline and forcing them into a position to come to us.
Yeah, that's what they get paid for.
Exactly.
That's their job.
We need to be fair on both sides, and
Yeah.
I believe that if we follow the RPC's process, that process would be to meet with the planning board and give us a presentation. I do have to make you aware that they've hired a PR firm, a well-known PR firm called Action Media. You can research them. They will be here to try to sell the agreement. So you should be aware that they're using professional salespeople to sell this. So it would behoove us to understand some of the background and let them do the presentation in the order that the RPC would like it to.
Prior to the actual presentation by the professional people. In other words, SRPC won't send those people if we book them for a public hearing. They'll just come.
They'll still send them, but
Oh,
with the information I've given you so far in the email, you will have very good educated questions. If you just hear their presentation, you're not going to be able to confront them questions. It's that well done where you will have no questions.
Is that email and the base information on the town website?
It is not on the town website.
That might be a good place to put it.
when do you think we should do this? How soon?
Well, we got time.
Well, I
We
can
don't
approach,
have all time.
I can approach the RPC and find out what schedule they have.
Could you do that?
Sure.
we don't meet for a month, right? So I'm thinking maybe we try to pull it together for an agenda item on next month's meeting.
Or put together a date. I kind of like what Steve had to say about Saturday. Everybody's, during the week, the kids and the homework and the dinner and the whole 9 yards, that's the way it works. And if you get enough people interested, people go out Saturday night, but less and less these days.
I work every Saturday until 3.
Well, we would do it in the evening, I think.
I work every Saturday till 3:15, 4.
Well, it's
You won't
like-
be able to come in late.
I think we should look to do this.
But why I brought that up is because just thinking back when Dick Peckham was involved here, he was always coming up with these Saturday charrettes, and how were those attended? I'm just thinking, we could follow that same.
Were they well attended?
Some of them were, some of them weren't, but I think you have a better opportunity to get them on the weekend. a higher attendance.
So my thought would be to have them come to one of our regular meetings and do their presentation. And then as a follow-on, schedule for public input on the topic. And whether it's Saturday or at one of our regular meetings or some other time, I'll leave that up to the group to decide. But I think that having them come to one of our regular meetings and do the presentation, it's going to be more relevant. Like, you know, for instance, Ed is videotaping right now. When people go and see what's going on with the planning board, they'll see that this is one of the topics we're dealing with. If it's just on, you know, some random workshop or charrette, then, you know, it may not be so clear what's going on. And this is, you know, and it could be that, you know, they come in and do the presentation and we really don't have any questions. It all makes sense to us. And I mean, it may make sense that we want to support it, or it may make sense that we want to oppose it. But I mean, that's also a possibility. It may be clear.
We may not have any questions at their initial presentation, but when they have the big presentations, we'll have questions. By then, I'm thinking that we, what's the date of the next meeting?
Be the 9th, wouldn't it?
Yeah, July 9th.
Well, I like it, Rob, that meeting. It's not a bad way to do it, have the presentation. I mean, either we're gonna do it at a meeting or we're gonna do it on Saturdays. That seems to be the discussion.
Well, I think what I'm just so I'm clear of what I'm
Mr.
proposing.
Chairman, thanks for recognizing me. I'd like to make a motion that we, as a planning board, study this email and the links and become educated ourselves for discussion on this further next meeting.
Could, you know, I think we can do that. I was gonna ask Ed if it's possible to get SRPC to come up and make a presentation to us at our next meeting
I will ask.
and put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
This is serious, I would like to be prepared, and there's a motion on the floor.
Okay, well, that's a motion that, repeat the motion.
I motion that we as a planning board to commit to read the email and go to the links and study this and be informed to discuss this further the next meeting.
Are you saying that motion with the intent not to have a presentation at the next meeting by SRPC?
Yes, I think the steps would be that we become educated and know really in detail what this is all about, and then discuss it at the planning board as a business item next meeting. And at that next meeting, we'll schedule an invitation for them to.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I think we need further discussion. Well, I was going to say something, but then you can have it. The only thing, you got your hand up?
I think Jim's got a little.
Okay, the only thing I think about this, I think you're right to a degree. However, the only thing that does is put us out to a meeting sometime in August, which gets us out there. In other words, things may come happening to us a little bit faster than we're geared to accept. Like, for instance, their big sales job that's going to come this way. And we're talking way out at the end of the summer now, or almost at the end of the summer. I think that we all can get pretty educated on this, and we can talk about this among ourselves, not as a planning board quorum, but and let the SRPC come and make a presentation to us along with our education by the next meeting. But we're having further discussion.
I read the email quickly, and I didn't go to any links. But the gist of the whole thing, I think this is a very, very important meeting. In fact, I think we all should commit to read this thing and know about it and get together and discuss. If we don't want to push it out to August, I would say we have to have a meeting in between now and then, just to discuss this as a planning board.
Is that a motion?
How about the
We have a
We
motion.
already have a motion on the floor.
Our discussion.
Okay.
I'll retract that motion.
Okay. That's what I
And
was
I'll
waiting
make a
to
new
hear.
motion, that this is a seriously important issue, and I think we should read up on this and be educated on it, and schedule a meeting before the next planning meeting to discuss this as a group and a planning board, so we all know what this is about. And then we can go forward the next planning board as educated planners.
And that meeting date would be
Yep.
I'm flexible.
the 4th Monday of this month?
What's this?
That's kind of the meeting, that's
Yeah.
kind of
That
the,
would be June 25th.
June 25th.
Anything on the, is anything scheduled here for 25th for anybody else?
I think that should be open for us.
Okay. So you're moving a June 25th meeting to discuss this.
Yes.
Do we have a second?
Yes.
Any other discussion?
I think Jim's been wanting to, and I'd like to speak after Jim.
Go ahead.
I think we're very correct in trying to get to this subject very quickly. Public hearing would definitely be a major plus. If the SRPC is pushing for an earlier movement on this, we may want to consider giving Gary the authority to put forth a public hearing kind of on the fly, because we'll have to have our notification to the public for that.
Yeah.
If we want to preempt, what the movement for the SRPC is.
Okay, duly noted.
So I think that we're maybe putting the cart before the horse. We're assuming that there's a problem with what SRPC is proposing, and we're assuming that we want to create a hubbub against it, it sounds like. I hear things like preempt and things like that. I think that that's maybe premature. I think that if I were making a presentation if I were proposing something, I would want to have the first word. I think it's fair for us to hear first from the horse's mouth what is being proposed. And we may come having read a bunch about it and come with questions, but I think that the start of the process should be SRPC making their presentation for what's being proposed. And then, hopefully with informed questions there, but I think that having a public hearing, for example, prior to them making the proposal it's premature. I think that we ought to get them to start help us start the discussion. And I think that if we feel like we need to have them come back for a second time to answer further questions, we should feel very comfortable doing that. And they should feel ready to do that. That should be part of the process, would be that there be multiple discussions between us and SRPC, if that's appropriate, in order to educate us on what it is that they're asking us to sign up for.
Rick?
More discussion. I feel this is a very important issue, and I think we all should know about it. And I'll speak for myself in saying, I don't know about this yet. And I want to be sure that I know about this before I have any public in front of me or any meeting, because this is important stuff. I think, and I'll go out on a limb and I'll say, I think there's one person in this room that probably really knows about it. And that would be this guy. And I challenge anyone else here to tell me that they really know about this and they're intimate with it.
Can I say
I
something?
agree with Rick.
I like your idea of having the second meeting. I mean, that's what we're supposed to be doing here.
Right.
I mean, so what? We have another meeting, it's a workshop in a way, but we're having a planning board meeting, we'll post it, we'll have it. Because that gives us a time to read it, interpret it individually, then discuss it among ourselves before SRPC gets here to make their presentation. So that whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, we're gonna have to have that discussion prior to them coming here, which would be a good idea on June 25th. And then schedule for the next meeting, like we originally said, the July 9th meeting,
Right.
to have SRP come and make the presentation. And at that point, after that, then it would be a good idea to go ahead and schedule a public hearing, because we should really have this under our belts at that point.
But yeah, I would think in the meantime too, just through word of mouth and people you see during the day, make it known
Yep.
that there is a hearing or a meeting and get as many people from the general